Victoria Chen had built her pharmaceutical company, Medicare Solutions, through ruthless efficiency and data-driven decisions. At 38, she was worth $900 million and employed 4,000 people. She knew every department, every metric, every expense. What she didn't know was her employees' actual lives. That changed the day she decided to follow Robert Hayes. Robert was a warehouse supervisor who'd worked for Medicare for 8 years. Good performance reviews, never late, never complained. But recently he'd requested to leave exactly at 5 p.m. every day instead of staying for overtime. He'd also asked for an advance on his paycheck, both requests denied per company policy. Victoria's COO had flagged it. Hayes is becoming unreliable, refusing overtime, requesting special treatment, maybe time to replace him. Something bothered Victoria about that assessment. Robert had been exemplary for 8 years. What changed? So she did something she'd never done before. She followed him after work. Victoria sat in her car outside the warehouse at 5:03 p.m. and watched Robert leave. He walked to an old truck, climbed in, and drove toward the residential side of town. Victoria followed at a distance. Robert stopped at a small house in a working-class neighborhood. Victoria parked down the street and watched. Robert got out of his truck and was immediately met by a girl, maybe 7 years old, who ran from the house into his arms. She was using an inhaler, clearly having trouble breathing. Robert held her, checked her breathing, talked to her calmly. Then a woman stormed out of the house. Blonde, 30s, furious. Victoria could hear her shouting from down the street. "You're 3 minutes late, Robert. I had to stay 3 extra minutes. I have plans. This is unacceptable." "I'm sorry, Kelly. Traffic was—" "I don't care about traffic. When I say 5 p.m. pickup, I mean 5 p.m., not 5:03. The little girl was still struggling with her inhaler. Robert tried to comfort her while his ex-wife continued yelling. "And another thing, Lily needs a new inhaler prescription. The insurance denied it again. That's on you. You figure it out. I'm done dealing with your daughter's medical issues." "She's our daughter." "No, she's your daughter. I pay my child support. That's all I'm required to do. Now take her and leave. I'm late for dinner." Kelly got into a car and drove away without looking back. Robert stood there holding his daughter, who was crying and wheezing. Victoria felt something crack in her chest. This was why Robert needed to leave at 5 p.m. exactly. This was why he'd requested the paycheck advance, his daughter's medical expenses. She watched Robert take Lily inside the house, saw lights turn on, saw them through the window as Robert helped his daughter with her breathing treatment. Victoria sat in her car for 20 minutes thinking. Then she drove home and spent the night reviewing Robert Hayes' employment file. 8 years of perfect performance. Never a sick day. Never late until 3 months ago when his ex-wife changed the custody arrangement to require exactly 5 p.m. pickup. Multiple requests for health insurance coverage expansion. All denied because asthma medication was not essential under their current plan. Victoria made some calls. By morning, she had the full picture. Robert's daughter had severe asthma. The medications that actually controlled it weren't covered by Medicare's employee insurance. Robert was paying $800 a month out of pocket for inhalers and treatments. He'd requested overtime to afford it, but his ex-wife's custody demands meant he couldn't work past 5 p.m. He was trapped between his daughter's needs and his ex-wife's inflexibility. The next day, Victoria called Robert into her office. Robert arrived nervous, clearly expecting to be fired. "Ma'am, I know I haven't been able to work overtime lately, but I promise my work quality hasn't declined." "I followed you home yesterday," Victoria said directly. Robert went pale. "You followed me? Why?" "Because I wanted to understand why an exemplary employee suddenly couldn't work overtime. I wanted to see if you were job hunting or being lazy. Instead, I saw you caring for your daughter who has severe asthma while your ex-wife screamed at you for being 3 minutes late." Robert's face flushed with embarrassment. "I'm sorry you saw that. It won't affect my work. I'll find a way to—" "Stop apologizing. I'm not here to reprimand you. I'm here to fix a problem I didn't know existed." Victoria pulled up her computer. "Your daughter is Lily, age 7, severe asthma, requiring daily controller medication and emergency inhalers. Our insurance doesn't cover the good medications. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't think you'd care. You run a pharmaceutical company worth billions. I'm just a warehouse supervisor. You're an employee who's been loyal for 8 years and is struggling because our insurance is inadequate. That's my responsibility." Victoria made a decision. Effective immediately, I'm expanding our employee insurance to cover all asthma medications, no copays for controller medications, and I'm establishing a medical hardship fund for employees with children who have chronic conditions. You'll receive retroactive reimbursement for the past year of expenses. Robert stared. That has to be expensive. You're doing that just for me? I'm doing it for every employee who's been suffering silently because I wasn't paying attention. You're not the only parent struggling with medical expenses for your kids. You're just the one I happen to follow home. Over the next weeks, Victoria learned more about her employees' lives. Single parents juggling custody schedules, workers choosing between medication and rent, people missing doctor's appointments because they couldn't take time off. She implemented sweeping changes, flexible scheduling for parents, expanded medical coverage, on-site childcare, generous sick leave. Her board questioned the costs. Victoria shut them down. We're a pharmaceutical company that didn't cover our own employees' medications adequately. That's obscene. We fix it. Now. 6 months later, employee retention had increased 40%. Productivity was up 25%, and Medicare had been named one of the best companies to work for in the country. At the company town hall, Victoria told Robert's story, with his permission. 6 months ago, I followed an employee home because I thought he was becoming unreliable. Instead, I discovered he was being an extraordinary father under impossible circumstances. Robert Hayes showed me that I'd been running this company based on spreadsheets instead of people. I'm grateful for that lesson. She looked at Robert, who sat in the front row with Lily. Thank you for being a good father, and I'm sorry it took me 8 years to see what you were dealing with. Robert stood and spoke to the crowd. I was ready to quit. I thought I had to choose between my daughter and my job. Ms. Chen chose for me. She made it possible to do both. That's what real leadership looks like. 2 years later, Lily's asthma was under control with proper medication. Robert had been promoted to operations manager. And Victoria had transformed Medicare from a company that maximized profit to one that prioritized people. At Lily's 9th birthday party, held at the company's new family center, Lily asked Victoria, "Why did you help my dad?" "Because I saw him being a hero and realized I'd been so focused on my business that I'd forgotten businesses are made of people. Your dad reminded me of that. So thank you for having such a good father. He made me a better CEO." If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe for more stories about leadership that values humanity. Comment about a boss who saw past the job to your real situation. Your story might inspire other leaders to pay attention today.